My name is Charles Loflin, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as the Ministerial Intern for the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. We are so glad that you've taken time to be with us here today, whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member. Know that you are welcome here.
Good morning. We are Diane
and Don Marks.
This morning we light the chalice to the words by Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give. To the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Hear the song of peace within you. Heed the song of peace in your heart. Each new beginning shall lead to the harvest. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us on our way.
Hello, my name is Liz, and I'm the Director of Religious Education Ministries here at Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. I have a great story for you today. Happiness Doesn't Come from Headstands by Tamara Levitt. Leela loved to do yoga. She loved to do all sorts of fancy poses, like downward dog, tree pose, cat pose. But there was one pose that Leela couldn't do. No matter how hard she tried, she could not do a headstand. She would take her time and swing her legs up, but kerplunk! She would end on the floor. I can't do it, she shouted from the floor. I can't do it, she said at the dinner table. She mumbled in the washroom, meaning I can't do it, of course. Then she tried again before bedtime, and guess what happened? 3, 2, 1, kerplunk! Leela couldn't do it, just like she told herself. Night after night, Leela dreamed of all the things she couldn't do. Rollerblading, skydiving, headstands, baking a cake. One day, Leela went to yoga class with her best friend, and she watched all the others do a headstand. I can do it! I can do it! I can do it! It's too bad you can't do it too. Leela lay back and yelled, "I'm frustrated!" Her friend suggested she try against a wall. She tried and tried, but kerplunk. Oh, I can't do it. After class, Leela talked with her friend as she tried not to cry. "If only I could do headstands," Leela said. "Then I would be happy." "But you can do lots of things," her friend said. "You can ice skate and sing and draw stars in the sand." "It's true, I can," Leela realized. So instead of just waiting for headstand happiness, Leela decided to have some fun. She frolicked in the fall. She whirled in the winter. She skipped in the spring. And as the seasons changed, so did Leela. "Ha!" Barry snickered as he saw Leela one day. "You still can't do headstands?" "No, not yet," said Leela. "And even if I never learn how to do a headstand, I can do lots of things, just like this." Leela leaped into a somersault and rolled all the way down the hill, laughing all the way. Because happiness doesn't come from headstands.
Hosea Ballou preached his liberal faith to everyday people, men and women of the laboring classes. He was a self-educated man from rural New Hampshire and Massachusetts who was spurned by the Boston Unitarian elite. But in no small part, thanks to Ballou, by the end of the 19th century, 1 out of every 8 Americans called themselves Universalists. He was an author, a public lecturer, an itinerant preacher, editor of various Universalist journals, and minister of the Second Universalist Society of Boston for a quarter of a century until his death in 1852 at age 81. Hosea Ballou's most important theological work was A Treatise on Atonement. In this work, he defined theology as a science of human experience. Theology is not a speculative art, it is always about human experience. So he concluded, "We ought not to argue over religious matters of truth, which we have no knowledge of by experience." Ballou insisted that human beings are created to be fulfilled and happy. In Ballou's own words, if the Almighty, as we believe him to be, did not possess power sufficient to make all his creatures happy, it was not an act of goodness in him to create them. If it be granted that God has both power and will to save all people, it is granting all I want for a foundation of my faith. Ballou rejected the beliefs that human nature is fallen, doctrine of original sin, and that human beings are subject to eternal damnation, doctrine of the elect and the damned. Ballou believed that human emotions prompt us to moral or immoral actions, so we are invited to strengthen the emotions that reap happiness for self and others. In Ballou's words, we cannot be profitable to others unless we savor of the spirit within us. Ballou believed we have a God-given right to be happy. God is love, Ballou insisted, and when we feel this love, we are happy. Ballou and some believed that a loving God would not condemn humanity to eternal damnation. Get rid of errant theology, Ballou said, and you will get rid of the clergy, politicians, and public figures who stoke fear in order to keep their own vested interests, personal greed, and moral corruption from public view. Ballou's legacy to us as Unitarian Universalists today is our awareness of our God-given right to be happy. Hosea Ballou made human happiness a mandate of liberal faith.
We have a memorial candle to share with you today. We've lost longtime member of our community, Nympha Oriana Edelman, who passed away on June 24th from Alzheimer's. We hold her family and close friends in our hearts, especially her beloved John Minihane, her children Kurt and Eric, and her 7 grandchildren, Weston, Grace, Nicholas, Eden, Eric Jr., Jacqueline, and Alexis. Oriana was a member of our choir and friend of many in the fellowship. She worked professionally as a high school Spanish teacher for many years at Glen Ridge High School. Oriana was beloved by many, and her daughters-in-law said this. Michelle said she was one of a kind. All that knew her were immediately aware of her classy and eccentric sense of style, her wit, amazing talents as an artist and a singer. And Adriana said this. She was an amazing, successful, cultured, intelligent, witty, gregarious, and beautiful woman. May Oriana's light and the legacy of her love burn brightly in the hearts of John, of her family, and of our community, now and always. Amen, and may it be so.
This is the second part of a 5-part summer series exploring how Unitarian Universalism is shaped by its first source. That source affirms and promotes direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Inspired by the Reverend Dr. Thandeka's UUA Tapestry of Faith curriculum, What Moves Us, in the first installment, we considered the experience of love in the theology of George de Benneville. Today, we further our exploration with the experience of happiness through the lens of Hosea Ballou. Hosea Ballou was the most influential and singularly important Universalist preacher, public theologian, editor, author, and pastor in 19th century America. In a nutshell, he believed human happiness is a mandate of liberal faith. We have a God-given right to be happy, Ballou insisted. How then does the direct experience of happiness move us to spiritual renewal and openness to life-affirming action? Ballou described his own religious journey towards happiness. At the age of 19, while attending a Baptist revival in his hometown of Richmond, New Hampshire, Ballou was gripped by fear from the preaching of the dominant Calvinist theology of his era, which insisted that God had determined that all but a chosen few were doomed to eternal damnation, fire, and brimstone for their sins. However, there was a problem for the young Ballou. While he was experiencing fear, Ballou felt a disconnect because he realized in that moment he wasn't terrified enough. Ballou would later say, "I did not stand in such fear of the divine wrath as I ought to do, or as others had done before they found acceptance with God." You see, his own personal experience wasn't matching up. In some ways, he just wasn't getting it. So to figure out what was wrong, he turned to the Bible to try to make sense of his new faith. There may, in fact, be nothing in the world quite so dangerous as an inquisitive and open mind that dares to bring their direct and personal experience to an exploration of sacred texts. Rather than confirm the espoused theology of the establishment, Ballou found within the pages of his Bible an affirmation of universalism, that is, universal salvation for all, and Unitarianism, the unity of God. He found not fear, but a deep happiness. There was nothing to fear. Ballou came face to face not with the false human-made God of wrath, but instead with an experience of such overwhelming love and happiness. When he tried to explain his discovery to his faith leaders, their response was anger at what they considered his apostasy. But Ballou stuck to the truth of his personal experience, and as his theological perspective developed, he came to believe that personal desires motivate our actions, and all of our actions, all of them, at the heart of the matter, reflect our desire to feel happy. Is Ballou correct? Are all human actions ultimately grounded in a desire for happiness? Is happiness a human right? And if so, to what extent is that a countercultural notion? If he is right, how then does that connect with the reality of life in a liberal faith community today? The question is, what does it mean to be happy? According to the annual World Happiness Report, released by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for the United Nations, in 2019, using the 6 metrics of freedom, generosity, income, trust, healthy life expectancy, and social support, the U.S. ranked 19th of the 156 countries. That was a drop of 1 position from 2018 and 5 ranks from 2017. Except for income, the U.S. didn't finish in the top of any of the metrics. In case you're wondering, Finland was ranked as the world's happiest country. Cynics may be quick to point out that the inalienable rights mentioned in the U.S. Declaration of Independence include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is probably the model many have been acculturated to imagine in terms of a progression towards happiness. And criticisms, limitations, and revisions of that model aside, it never attempts to answer the question of whether happiness is a human right. I find it somewhat difficult to reconcile the desire for happiness in my own life experiences. I mean, on the one hand, I advocate for my own right to happiness, and generally, I anticipate being happy. Overall, I consider myself a happy person. But on the other hand, I can be my own worst enemy, and I can take actions that not only don't result in my happiness, but may suggest that on some psychological level, at times, I don't even believe that I deserve to be happy. I'm also very aware of how my social location and identity bestow an enormous amount of unearned privilege. Those advantages may not guarantee happiness, but they certainly impact my options, and they serve as a reminder of the danger of universalizing my own experience as somehow normative. But I think my greatest reservation in fully embracing a happiness of theology is that too often happiness can be framed in a zero-sum game where my happiness is understood as competing with the happiness of you and others. And in such a scarcity mindset, the eventual outcome is an atmosphere of fear and control, and it quite easily devolves into oppression and abuse of power. So surely there are necessary conditions and limits on the right to happiness. So how does happiness help in framing a theological perspective? In his most significant work, A Treatise on Atonement, Ballou acknowledges something of this tension in the proposition that human desire for happiness is a fundamental drive, but he warns against a pursuit of happiness that is reduced to ultimate selfishness. For Ballou, true happiness for an individual is always connected to the happiness of others. And that, perhaps, is the light bulb moment for me. See, the experience of happiness that Ballou is advocating is always relational in nature. It simultaneously involves each individual acting in their own self-interest, but also includes our shared communal interests. You know, an illustration may be helpful. Imagine that you've never tasted an orange. A friend asks if you love oranges. You say, you have never tasted one, but your friend insists that you really should love oranges. Well, how can you possibly like or dislike an orange if you've never tasted one? So, you taste the orange and you find out that you like it. When your friend asks again if you like oranges, you respond, yes, my experience is that their flavor is exquisitely agreeable. No, says your friend, that isn't the way. You must like it solely because it is an orange. Ballou rejects that kind of thinking. He says that personal experience matters. His theology of happiness is informed by his personal experience of happiness. But what gives that experience of happiness a theological aspect is when it becomes mutually inclusive of both the self and the other. In Ballou's own words, we cannot be profitable to others unless we savor of the Spirit within us. What a beautiful word, savor. For Ballou, it's an experience to be savored. Can you imagine how life might become different if we took the time to truly savor? To savor the orange, to savor the love, to savor the belonging, to savor life, all of it. Might that, in fact, be the happiness that Ballou is talking about? So what moves us? The experience of happiness moves us, especially when it's an experience of a life that has been fully savored.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
This week, I invite you to explore what it means to have a theology of happiness. What are the things that bring you happiness? What might it mean for you to savor the happiness of all of your experiences? Maybe you can have a conversation with a friend or a family member and ask them where they find deep happiness. Our closing words this morning are from Hosea Ballou, as found in Singing the Living Tradition number 705. If we agree in love, there is no disagreement that can do us any injury. But if we do not, no other agreement can do us any good. Let us endeavor to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bonds of peace.